Hi, I'm Bettina Inclon,
I'm Paul Jacob.
and we're going to talk today about ballot initiatives occurring across the country. So, Paul, what's going on in the ballot initiative world?
Well, probably the biggest story is the aftermath and all the fallout from the May 19th elections in California. Legislators put 6 measures on the ballot that really moved money around, tried to fix a budget hole, which is pretty large in California, and voters slapped them down 5 out of 6 times. In fact, the only measure to pass was one that said that legislators' salaries didn't have to go up. That wasn't the one they were trying to get. So you really have now a number of people, both in the media and among politicians. Meg Whitman, who's a former eBay CEO and now running as a Republican for governor in California, starting to suggest that maybe they don't need the ballot initiative. Maybe it's a bad idea. And you're seeing more and more in the press and among politicians where they seem to be blaming the voters of California. My view is that's a lot of BS, that basically the initiative process is responsible for all kinds of reforms. It's responsible, obviously, everything passed by initiative isn't good, but people might disagree over what's good or what's not. The bottom line is it's not dictating the spending of California. A very small amount is being dictated by initiative.
You mentioned that with California, people try to point the finger of what's going wrong on that Prop 13 and
Right.
trying to point the finger of what's wrong with California given the huge budget situation. And like Meg Whitman, members of elected politicians or people that are trying to become elected politicians, pointing the finger at that. What do you think about
Well,
that?
Prop 13 was 30 years ago. It dealt with property taxes. Property taxes have gone up in California, not down, because of inflation and growth. So I think Prop 13 gets beat up a lot, but the truth is nobody's put it up on the ballot to repeal it because it's very, very popular. And it's not responsible for their budget problems. There is a requirement that they get 2/3 of the legislature to make a budget, to get a budget through. They need 2/3 to raise taxes. Both of those are by initiative, and so that's part of the reason that they blame the initiative. But my sense, and the polls I've seen on this subject seem to bear this out, that these are very, very popular. Voters like the idea that the majority in the legislature has to negotiate with the minority in order to get a budget through, and they like that it's tougher to raise taxes. But whether those are good measures or bad measures, the real issue is who's supposed to decide that? Who's in charge? And in California, because of the initiative process, oftentimes voters can be in charge. I think that's a good thing. Voters in California think it's a good thing. Some of the elected officials who would like the budget to be solved a little more easily for them don't like the initiative. But I think we're going to see a battle over California's initiative process. There are bills in the legislature now to really restrict it in all kinds of ways. So I would expect this issue to really heat up over the next year or so.
Definitely. I know that people have been talking about a possible revision to the Constitution, but it brings me to another point. I know that the process is under attack in other states. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. Earlier this year we had some big successes. Oklahoma passed 3 different bills that would make the process better. 2 of them have progressed. The governor vetoed one of them. Virginia, they passed a law to protect petitioners from fines coming from the courts and just provided some protections for people petitioning. But most of the time throughout the country, we're still seeing attacks on the process and efforts to really restrict it. Colorado passed a law that makes it tougher to do initiatives in that state. I think we'll see that in court. Oregon just passed a law recently that would make it to where a leader of an initiative effort could be fined $10,000 for every instance of somebody working on the effort who they might never meet. If someone signed fraudulent signatures or some petition gatherer broke the rules somewhere, the leader of the effort could be fined $10,000.
Aren't people concerned about activists being put into difficult situations for things that they had nothing to do with?
Well, the one legislator among the majority in Oregon that voted against this measure said that it basically means that nobody's going to be willing to come forward and lead an initiative effort. And of course, I think that may be part of the design. It makes it extremely difficult and threatening for anybody to get involved in the process. It's the opposite of what we want. We want a process that welcomes people. Mm-hmm. If someone does something wrong, if someone commits fraud, then go after that person, mm-hmm. prosecute that person. That's why we have laws and rules and regulations. But you don't somehow try to use one person's bad behavior to penalize somebody else.